Okay, time to go a little lower. So we've already discussed and shown where we sanded those posts away right here flush with these tabs. Now we want to go a little bit lower. First thing is just to pop this out. There's nothing holding it in there. You can pop it right out. And what we're going to do is we're going to sand these tabs away or cut them. Just depends on how you want to do it. Me, I use a good old Dremel and I just cut them off. And when you're done, then you just end up with something like this. We've just cut the tabs away, free and clear. So now we're going to talk about the body posts. All right, so if you look really close at these posts, you can see these little wings, as I call them, reinforcements that they put on each side of the post. And it's actually a pretty good guide, because what we're going to do is we're going to cut this flush with those posts. So you can see the posts here. We're going to go flush all the way across. So how do we do that? Well, it's good old Dremel time. All right, so we've used our Dremel. We've made our cuts, trying to keep it just flush with those wings. Now, you're never going to get them perfectly even using your Dremel, and that's okay, because you have a file. And now you can get closer and you can sit here and you can file this down just a little bit until you can tell when that is flush with those wings, those reinforcements. And you just do that until you get them just flush on each side, and then stop, and we're going to test fit again. So to give you a better idea of what we're doing here after we've cut and we've sanded is place the body on the chassis. You can see where the posts are sitting. Now, do you want body lean? Do you want the body to be leaning a little bit? That's up to you. We're going to keep ours pretty much flush. And maybe I got a little bit of lean going on there. That's okay, because just get your file and adjust your posts. But this is what we're talking about, where these posts are going to be sitting. All right, so real quick, you might ask, what happens if I go too low? What happens if I take off too much material on these posts and it's sitting too low? Well, I like to use these shims from Slot Car Corner. These are the axle spacers. They range from 10 thousandths to 60 thousandths, and they're just perfect for adjusting it. So yeah, you can just put them on here just like that, and that way you can pick it back up just the height. So if you go a little too far, shims, spacers like this, they're very handy. Another question I get is, how come we're not sanding on the chassis? Well, that's because you don't really have enough plastic to work with. If you flip your chassis over and you look, you'll notice you don't have a lot of thickness here. And if you sand this down too far and you open this up all the way like that, then your screw has nothing to go to. So I just leave these alone. Like I said, we've sanded away the lip, the cups here for body float, but I don't go any more on the top. I leave that there, and we sand the post. And there we go. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? But let's just see what happens when we bring the Dodge unmodified up next to it this time. Now look at that difference. Now go back to part 7 and look what happened when we just took a little bit off. But now look what we got going on. Yeah. Yep. That's good for me. That's just about perfect. Really got it lowered, and like I said, you don't think so, but it's going to mean a lot. So I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so we're happy with that height. Well, let's talk about something. The interior. Again, this is just how I do it. That's what we're going to discuss. But if you want to use this tray, some modifications are just going to have to be made. But let's show you. So you can see there our difference, and we're really happy with that. So let's take the body off and let us put the glass back in. Unmodified glass. And we'll go ahead, we'll put the interior back in. Get that popped on there like that, nice and snug. Okay. And we can put it back on here. Well, what happened? Where did it go? How come it's not any lower? Well, as we talked about, that's the interior right here hitting the motor. So now it's time to work on that. All right, well, I hope you're ready for this. I can tell you now, we're going to do some cutting here. Here's a stock interior, unmodified, and all I can tell you is it's just going to take some work. If you're not ready to do this, then now's your time to stop. For me, you know, it's not a big deal. Nothing a Dremel can't handle, and I kind of like grinding things up to make things work. But that's just me. Again, if you don't want to use this interior, you're not ready to cut it up, now's your stopping point. Now, to show you what we're going to do, best way, show you a finished one. As you can see, got a large access hole there for the motor. I've also adjusted back here. I've taken and sanded this down, and that's because when you start lowering, depending on your tire diameter size, you have a chance of the tires rubbing on the interior here like that because you're going so low. So you're going to want to trim this away and sand it away, and that's what I've done here. And finally, again, depending on your diameter of tire, you'll notice here that I've taken a Dremel, and yes, I've gotten a little close, you know, almost, you know, all the way through there. You can't see it, not that big a deal, but you have to do that again when the chassis is on here, or the body is on here with the interior, is you don't want that rubbing right there. See, it just depends how low you're going to go. So now you can see the difference. Well, of course, these still have the tabs on it. So again, we'll compare that. There's the stock unmodified, and here is modified. We've just taken some material away, and almost all the time, as far as my lowering technique goes, that's enough. So time to fire up the Dremel, get started. All right, we're going to have to remove a few things here before we get started. Fire extinguisher right here is going to have to be moved, and we're going to have to trim some roll bar material away. So what I do to get started there is good old Dremel again with one of our medium milling bits. You can use a smaller one if you want. First one I go for is the post melt to the bottom part of that roll bar right there. So your down bar right here, that point, you flip it over, you find out where it is, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to sand that away. So just a milling bit on low, and we can start taking the material away. And that basically is all it takes. Now we're going to talk about our fire extinguisher. Again, you see it there, you flip it over, you find the melts right here, and you just bring them away. Pretty simple. Doesn't take a whole lot, and it is ready to be pulled out. Alright, so I've popped out the fire extinguisher. We're going to glue it back in here. We're just going to relocate it. Now we're going to talk about that roll bar material. So like I said, we've ground that away. Now I'm going to get in here with a sprue cutter, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it just about right there. almost even with the seat. And see, that piece pops away. But we're not done yet. And you have this cross member at the bottom right here. So sprue cutter once here, turn it around, go right here, and it's away. So if you want to, when you're finished, you can take this down bar here and you can glue it against this seat if you want to, or you can just let it lay there. Half the time I just let it lay there, but it just, you know, if you don't want to lose all the side profile detail, just leave that bar in place.